So this match is an older one here. This is actually goes back quite a ways. Very first tournament where Last Rites competed. So if you go back far enough, this is the very first Combats Cup event. The Combats Cup event was kind of unique in that it was set up like the Stanley Cup. So there was a trophy, and whoever won the event would get the trophy, but he'd have to give it up next year to see whoever won the next one. So this was the first Combats Cup event in 2005. And a lot of robots that hadn't competed before sort of crawled out of the woodwork for this event because it was a cash prize. And I guess that includes me too, because this is the first event where I had run Last Rites. So this is one of those matches from that event. I'm fighting a robot called Body Slam, which is kind of interesting because it had a big sprocket on the back and the whole top of the robot. They would try to get under you and then they could slam you all the way around over. That's why the name Body Slam. So it was kind of a cool idea against a non-kinetic energy robot like mine. It could be semi-effective. Against me, they were kind of up against some stuff that they really weren't built to handle. So what they did is they mounted they got a 4x6 piece of lumber across the front, and they cut a car tire and spread it across it, and then wrapped the whole thing up with a tow strap so they could hold it all together. And the idea being is something that they could throw together quickly in the pits to try to control the kinetic energy that I was bringing. And I guess we'll just have to watch the match and see how that goes. So in this particular match, this was sort of some growing pains in getting used to building this particular robot. And the way it was laid out, I had a weapon motor, the perm, the big perm, and it drew a lot of current when it was spinning up. And for drive, I was using these little EV Warriors. That was the drive motor I was using because that was really all I had weight for in that particular robot. And this is a solid motor. For the time, it really wasn't big enough to drive a heavyweight. Later on, we moved to the NPCs, which have a lot more torque and power, so we were able to get a lot more drive power out of that than we were with the little guy here. So, problem being, since I didn't have a lot of power in drive and the weapon motor was drawing most of the current, As it turned out, I could almost not drive with the weapon on, but I could drive fine with the weapon off. So this particular match, we'd spin up the weapon, and then I really couldn't chase the guy down. He would run into the weapon a few times. The only thing I could drive is if I turned the weapon off. And so right in the middle of the match, I just turned it off, and then I could drive around for a while. Well, what I figured out towards the end of the match was I could turn the weapon on, I could spin it up, and I could turn it off, and then I'd have current enough to be able to drive the drive, and I could drive into him for that one big hit right at the end. Obviously, we made a lot of improvements to the robot down the road after that. It was kind of primitive at that point in time. But it was a fun event, and it did start that whole Combats Cup series, which was really good. So even though we didn't do very well in that first event, Last Rites was able to win the Combats Cup twice later on. So you got to start somewhere. We started there. So anyway, if you like any of what we're doing here, I'll probably have a few more of these older matches that I'll try to get up and whatnot, and subscribe to the channel and see what else we have coming down the road.